where you watch, look where you watch, know where you watch, choose the right thing to watch, and this enough to watch. Sticky Stucky Sweet TV with Keith Gog on Facebook and YouTube. And that enough to watch. The movie star fly take off from Palpatine TV, so that. Boom!
A big sound, a big tune.
Ja oli Emmanuel I, boy. Ja Gideon, I'm a Gideon. The Gideon, I'm a Gideon. The Gideon, I'm a Gideon. Well, Gideon go busting out them head again. So much oppression poor people face right now. Them crying out for freedom. Them crying out for free speech. Then said them want to stand up like them black liberators, like Malcolm X and Martin Luther. And the ancient monarchy will come pave the way, sir. Free up black people from it, tear down them fence, yeah. Gideon, I'm a Gideon. The Gideon, I'm a Gideon. The Gideon, I'm a Gideon, well, the Gideon go busting out them head. I listen, I the power of the Trinity. Give us the teaching of His Majesty, and we know war, not every...
Blue, Mr. Gargan, blue. Blue till me dance up me toe.
This is Sticky Stucky Sweet TV with Keith Gargan. Good, healthy food with the X Factor. So give it a like, share, subscribe, and touch up that notification bell. And that is it. Look at that.
A corrupt government cannot liberate the people. If the head of the stream is corrupt, the entire river will be also. I do not support corruption. Corruption takes money away from children's education. It deprives hospitals of basic necessities. It means that roads are not fixed. Corruption deepens inequality. It siphons off taxpayers' money to make a few cronies richer with the political connections instead of benefiting the people. This government has been doing everything it can to weaken and undermine the Integrity Commission, which is an institution that I designed as Minister of Justice and brought the legislation to Parliament to fight corruption in this country. I have said it before and I will tell you again. Jamaica cannot move forward without a government built on integrity that embraces principles of good governance in this country.
Up, and running, up and gunning. Sticky Stucky Sweet TV, Keith Gargan. Cassava, passava, mind over matter. Up and running, and also blessed to each and every one. Blessed to myself as well, to live to see another day. Happy Tuesday evening. Yo. So we also know it's a long little all out this, because we see the whole loose for them come out and drunk with them trying to pass a corruption or a corrupted bill when I have no rascal integrity about it, because it's just, you don't have no rascal overseers, and you always want to push this through. And we said that yesterday, if the rascal PMP, they make this go through, then, them finish, and Jamaica rascal finish. The only people gonna laugh is the JLP party. And this is one thing where them have to go right to the end till them get all the changes. They have to just do it like the constitutional bill, right? Because so them put that on a wall. So them have to bring that a code because Andrew Wallace come with him smart self. And things them can just override things like that. This a bill lack of certain things. So much things, not even certain things. Well, certain things and so many different things. Where is nothing there for poor people. It's just there for them set up for them to make a lot more money and thief a lot more money. And that's all it is. And them can do what they want to do. And then Andrew Wallace is going to be the governor for the whole situation. Him going to be the man. It can't work. Right? So we see a lot of that go on. Bullying, noise making. And then DAMION CRAWFORD deal with them crucial as well. Both some one of them shit. But sometimes the PMP them have to come on strong. They can't just strong this week and next week and go back on a low. Make no sense. We have to dip on top of things. Yeah, man. We have to dip on top of things. So we're not going to do no whole long talking. We're just going to the whole thing because it's a long session, And I'm very interested as well. Yeah, man. Long session, very interested.
First, let me join with you in welcoming the delegation from Rwanda who are here on a very important mission in relation to our court system and its digitization. I think all of Jamaica is really
Rwanda one like a corrupted country.
The implementation of a system that you have in Rwanda that has clearly served your people well.
Go on, man. You don't know where you are blood clot. This blood clot, these people are some blood clot people them invite.
Welcome, President.
Some corruption blood clot people, you know.
And
Rwanda.
hope you will enjoy your time here in Jamaica. We know your president visited and had a very good time. Madam Speaker, it is suggested that we go straight to public
blood clot bullshit.
Our sectoral debates, and then we will go back
bullshit.
to the other matters that we have to do. We are looking forward to continuing our sectoral debates today, where we will start with the Minister of Water, Environment and Climate Change, a new ministry but a very seasoned and hard-working and competent minister, the Member of Parliament from St. Ann North East.
Fucking incompetent.
And then he will be
competent
followed by the Member of Parliament for St. Catherine North West.
Pay bagaboo blood clot go minister. We're not gonna fall, don't worry.
Speaker,
no matter when I try, we're not bringing all kind of fuckery. If you don't know if it does
we would have.
Look at this Jezebel, you know.
Let me first ask that we
look at this Jezebel face.
Vote to move straight to public business, and then we will recommit all the items on the agenda.
This tough fucking face.
Those against the ayes have it.
Bigfoot Jezebel.
The time limits already having been established in our sitting last week will not need to be repeated. Please be reminded of the time limit. I will repeat it. It would appear
time limit. They want to put restriction on every blood clot thing. But the PMP don't put time limit on.
Your usual time is 45 minutes and an additional 15 minutes has been approved. So your limit is no more than 60 minutes or an hour. And in the case of the opposition spokesperson, it is 30 minutes and you get an extra 5 minutes, so 35 minutes.
So what kind of fucking justice is that?
Please, I will be.
Them have 1 hour and then. And that's how I say the working PMP.
Please make welcome the Minister of Water and Environment.
So they want to shut down the blood clot PMP them 30 minutes and 5 minutes extra. The GLP have 1 hour and 15 minutes. So what am I trying to do?
Represents the seat of St. Ann Northeast.
This is just a blood clot. I don't know the PMP them make them to happen to them, you know.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
It's a fucking joke. It's supposed to even Stephen.
Minister, I am sorry to interject. For the benefit of all the members, when your time is up, you will only hear the bell go off so that you will recall that you are now going into additional time. I'm asking you to just continue with your presentation. Don't have the bell break your stride. Just continue when it goes off. You guys major in the minor a lot though.
Madam Speaker.
When the buzzer goes off, since you don't like ringing the bell, because it's a bell. Yes, anything you would like. So when the buzzer goes off, you will just continue in good stride. And you do not need to sit or wait for additional time. So you're comfortable continuing your presentation. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I rise today to make my contribution to the sectoral debate in this honorable house,
Honorable House.
To stand here
Wanna make it come like a shit house.
Of the Almighty, but secondly,
wanna make it come like a shit house.
By the constituency of St. Ann Northeast.
Oh no, shit on everything.
I pause to acknowledge my councillors, constituency executive, management team members who are present here today. I also use this opportunity to etch in the annals of history the work, the impact, the ambition, and the intended legacy of the young but dynamic Ministry of Water, Environment, and Climate Change that I now have the honor and privilege to lead. I welcome senior members of the ministry to the Parliament today, including the Permanent Secretary Wayne Roberts and our Director General Sharon Morrison, CTDs, and team members who are also here today. I also welcome members of the boards of management and senior team members of the agencies and departments also under my supervision. Madam Speaker, I also use the opportunity to welcome guests from the World Bank Water Sector team who are in Jamaica on a particular mission but have joined us this afternoon. We extend welcome to them as well. Madam Speaker, I wish to thank the Most Honourable Prime Minister for the trust he once again placed in me to manage
Honourable Prime Minister, what a joke.
Madam Speaker, there are many persons who deserve an expression of profound gratitude. It is my hope that they are not slighted by the lack of mention because of the time constraints this afternoon.
What a joke, Honourable
Madam
Prime
Speaker,
Minister.
as I begin,
fucking dishonourable, boy.
On the words of the Most Honourable PM, when he made it clear that this government and this budget is about building forward together, and that we are moving from simply resilience to resurgence. This resurgence is a precise intention of this ministry, an intention, Madam Speaker, that will be made real through intentional service, environmental stewardship, and the development of climate-resilient water systems. Madam Speaker, the ministry was created because climate change, water security, environmental protection, forestry, ocean governance, and the blue economy required dedicated singular focus. Madam Speaker, I'm proud to report that in what can only be described as a remarkably short period, that through partnerships coordinated by this ministry, we have already mobilized tens of millions of US dollars in climate and adaptation financing, coordinated a national recovery of major water systems after the most disruptive disaster ever recorded in Jamaica, provided timely information before, during, and after Hurricane Melissa that not only saved lives but also gave our people hope and guidance. Importantly, Madam Speaker, this ministry has also allowed Jamaica to assume leadership roles in the global environmental agenda and entrenched our position as a credible, bankable partner and thought leader in global climate and environmental stewardship. I reiterate and emphasize, not only for the members of this House, but moreover for the people of Jamaica, that climate resilience is not an expense. It is an investment in Jamaica's survival, stability, competitiveness, and indeed our resurgence. Madam Speaker, the challenge is great, but the resilience and ingenuity of the Jamaican people are equal to the task. Madam Speaker, I'm also pleased to advise this Honourable House that all boards under the purview of this ministry have been duly gazetted. Cabinet approval has been received and board members have been appointed, ensuring that the governance structures responsible for overseeing our agencies and delivery of this critical program are fully constituted and operational. Madam Speaker, today I will provide an update on Jamaica's climate change agenda. This is not simply a policy discussion. It is about protecting livelihoods, strengthening economic resilience, and ensuring that Jamaica remains prepared in the face of intensifying climate impacts. Madam Speaker, over the period of 2020 to 2025, Jamaica has experienced an escalation in climate-related events. The passage of Hurricane Beryl in July 2024, Hurricane Melissa in October 2025, resulted in widespread damage and disruption across several parishes. These events, alongside severe drought conditions between 2020 and 2023, caused significant damage to infrastructure, agricultural and coastal systems, while having a severe economic impact. Road networks, water systems, and electricity infrastructure were impacted. Smallholder farmers and experienced crop losses, and coastal communities face storm surge, flooding, and erosion. These impacts are not isolated. They directly affect productivity, food security, and national stability. Madam, every dollar spent on recovery is a dollar diverted from the development agenda. And this is why climate change must be treated as a core economic issue. Madam Speaker, Jamaica strengthened its climate governance net framework in 2023 through the approval of the Climate Change Policy Framework and Emissions Policy Framework. These provided a coordinated national approach across sectors. Madam Speaker, the development and passage of climate change legislation will mark a significant step in strengthening Jamaica's governance framework. The ministry is partnering with the UK FCDO to deliver this legislation, which will provide legal backing for climate policies and ensure accountability across sectors. This is essential for delivering sustained and measurable outcomes, greater transparency, and improved policy implementation and increased investor confidence. This legislation is expected to be complete this fiscal year. Madam Speaker, Jamaica's long-term emissions reduction and climate resilience strategy, or otherwise referred to as our LTS 2050, completed in July 2025, represents our vision for Jamaica as a climate-smart, resilient country. The strategy outlines Jamaica's pathway to achieving net zero emissions by or before 2060, while ensuring that economic growth remains inclusive, sustainable, and resilient. Madam Speaker, what distinguishes the LTS is not solely an environmental strategy, it is a developmental strategy. It focuses on a whole of economy approach and includes focus on the energy systems, transport, agriculture, infrastructure and urban development, as well as forestry and ecosystems. The LTS projects approximately 13.9 billion in net economic benefits by 2050, along with the creation of 26,000 jobs, particularly in green and emerging sectors. Madam Speaker, these are not just projections. They represent a shift in how Jamaica positions itself in the global economy. Importantly, the LTS is aligned with our NDC and other national priority policies, ensuring coherence across short and medium and long-term planning. Madam Speaker, in 2025, ahead of the deadline, Jamaica also submitted its nationally determined contributions to the UNFCCC, which is a requirement of the Paris Agreement. This, Madam Speaker, saw an ambitious target of Jamaica committing to 41% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2035, relative to a business-as-usual scenario. Our NDCs focused on energy, transport, forestry, and land use, and for the first time took a valuation of the carbon capture capabilities of our mangrove forests. Madam Speaker, between 2024 and 2026, Jamaica advanced its approach to food security through the development of a climate-informed, multi-scalar mapping system in partnership with RADA and the Climate Technology Center and Network under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. MWEC led the project, raising $250,000, but partnered very closely with RADA, Madam Speaker. This is important for centralized data on agriculture, climate risks, and food security, allowing decision-making at multiple levels, national, parish, and community. This means we can now identify with much greater precision the areas most vulnerable to drought, flooding, and production shocks. Madam Speaker, the Adapt Jamaica project represents a major investment in climate resilience for the agriculture sector. With US $50 million secured through the GCF, this initiative will benefit over 700,000 Jamaicans, particularly smallholder farmers and rural communities. And the member from Southwest St. Elizabeth can attest to the fact that $40 million of this is indeed grant funding. For that, we are particularly proud. This project targets the strengthening and resilience of the agriculture sector, and we are also supporting income generation. This initiative demonstrates how targeted investments can deliver both environmental and socio-economic benefits. Madam Speaker, the government has transitioned from planning to implementation on its electric mobility. On January 20th, 2026, a validation workshop confirmed the structure of a pilot program under the NDC Technology and Economic Cooperation Program. This program has deployed 3 standardized 12-meter battery electric buses across UTEC, CMU, and HART. These buses are designed to meet real demand with passenger loads ranging from 25 to 50 persons per trip and daily travel distances up to 240 kilometers. Madam Speaker, we further focused on developing what is called JA-NAP. This is our National Adaptation Plan. In this regard, the development of Jamaica's first comprehensive NAP, or JANAP, represents a critical pillar of our national response. This work is being advanced in collaboration with the PIOJ and is a priority for completion this financial year. Madam Speaker, the JANAP is not simply another policy document. It is an implementation framework. It is designed to move us from fragmented, project-based interventions to a coordinated whole-of-government approach to resilience building. The plan focuses on sectors such as water, agriculture, coastal zones. Madam Speaker, the strength of the JANAP is that it is being implemented by the PIOJ, who also developed the JSRAT tool, which is a systemic risk assessment tool. Therefore, the NAP will be grounded in data, risk assessment, coordinated vulnerability mapping, economic analysis, and climate projections to ensure that investments are targeted where they are most needed. Importantly, Madam Speaker, it integrates gender considerations, stakeholder engagement, and investment planning. Madam Speaker, the development of carbon markets, of our carbon markets framework presents a significant opportunity for Jamaica to access new revenue streams while encouraging the growth of clean technology developments and installations across various sectors by participating in global carbon markets. Jamaica can attract investments and simultaneously support emissions reduction projects. For local businesses and entrepreneurs, this framework creates opportunities to participate in the green economy, as among other things, it supports technology transfer and economic diversification. Madam Speaker, we intend to finalize this framework this year. I won't speak much about the Loss and Damage Fund because I would have provided a statement to this Honourable House before, but just as an update, the country has submitted its first request for funds from the Loss and Damage Fund to the tune of $20 million US, and we expect a formal decision in June of this year coming from the damage of Hurricane Melissa. Madam Speaker, the government, through the Development Bank of Jamaica, continues to push the throttle to position Jamaica to better access global climate finance opportunities. By aligning with international financing goals, Jamaica will be better equipped to secure the resources needed for national development. Madam Speaker, Jamaica will this year complete preparations for the launch of its own Blue and Green Fund to be housed at DBJ. We expect this to be primarily financed by the GCF, and Jamaica targets over $150 million investment in this fund that will finance blue and green projects across varying sectors. Madam Speaker, the state of the environment. The global context is unambiguous. The United Nations Environment Programme has characterized our predicament as a triple planetary crisis: climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. These are not abstract threats. They are converging risk multipliers. Climate change intensifies storms and droughts, biodiversity loss erodes ecosystem services like coastal protection and food security. Pollution of both air, land, and of course marine undermines public health and economic productivity. Small island developing states like Jamaica are on the front line. Sea level rise, coral bleaching, coastal erosion, and extreme weather events impose fiscal burdens and disrupt livelihoods. Our policy posture, therefore, must be anticipatory, science-led, and economically disciplined. This you have heard from me in this House before, Madam Speaker. However, I think it's important this afternoon to introduce the concept of planetary boundaries in this Honourable House. This graphic shows the current state with only two boundaries globally not being exceeded. The planetary boundaries framework highlights the rising risk from human pressure on 9 critical global processes that regulate the stability and resilience of the Earth. Crossing boundaries increases the risk of generating large-scale, abrupt and irreversible environmental damage. The impacts of these changes will not necessarily be immediate or drastic, but together the boundaries mark a critical threshold for risks to society and the biosphere we are a part of. Members of this House and those listening at home should be clear that this is already having an impact on Jamaica. But, Madam Speaker, I also believe we must be unambiguous in acknowledging the current state of our environment. In some areas, Jamaica has led the world. In other areas, we are behind. Only by acknowledging the problems, similarly to the way the MHPM and indeed the DPM have approached crime, in this country, can we solve them? Above is Jamaica's ranking as assessed by Yale University in their 2024 assessment. Jamaica sits at 68 out of 180 countries assessed in the overall ranking. Good. However, important for us to confront the areas in which Jamaica is not assessed to be progressing at the right pace. For colleagues' information, areas such as climate change we're ranked number 23 in the world in our management of the subject. Marine protection, 27. But there are areas of particular challenge. Certainly, waste management, our red list index, we are at 164 and 138 respectively. So this gives you an idea of where we have to focus. The areas we're doing well, we want to entrench the work. The areas we're not doing well, we want to invest more and give greater focus to ensure we move up the ranking and indeed protect our environment. Jamaica's standing provides a useful benchmark. While we have had gains in areas such as protected area coverage and indeed waste management and ecosystem vitality, the EPI underscores a central truth. Incrementalism will not suffice. We require systemic interventions, better enforcement, stronger data systems, and targeted capital investments. Our current regulatory focus. Our regulatory framework is anchored by the NRCA Act and administered through NEPA. Complementary statutes include the Wildlife Protection Act, the Forestry Act, the Water Resources Act, the Beach Control Act, and the regulations governing air emissions, effluent discharge, and solid waste. And that's important to understand. The present focus is threefold: enforcement integrity, standards modernization, data and transparency. Madam Speaker, that is why I'm happy today to have tabled in this honorable House the overarching protected areas policy white paper, which is within your package, and the draft keys management policy green paper. The overarching protected areas policy will replace the 1997 protected areas policy and will provide the policy direction for the effective management of the country's protected area system. It should be noted that the island has over 350 protected areas, including national parks, marine parks, fish sanctuaries, forest reserves, and forest management areas, which have been declared under various pieces of legislation. Madam Speaker, in further bolstering the country's environmental legislative framework, the Ministry, in collaboration with the Forestry Department, is advancing the repeal and replacement of the Forest Act. This new piece of legislation will include provisions that specify transfer of land, inventory, and the classification of forests and forest land, and a declaration of a no-burn season. I'm happy to report that the Forest Bill is before the Legislative Committee of the Parliament and will be tabled in a matter of weeks. Legislative Committee of the Cabinet. Additionally, Madam Speaker, the Ministry will be advancing the amendment of the Wildlife Protection Act. In this regard, a draft bill has already been prepared and is being reviewed. It is my further intention to have this bill tabled before the end of Q1 of this financial year. Madam Speaker, the passing of this bill will clear the path for honouring of the government's commitment to finally ratify the SPA protocol. Madam Speaker, additionally, the government will complete the long-awaited environmental impact assessment regulations under the NRCA Act this fiscal year. Madam Speaker, our strategic environmental focus, and I have circulated the digital document, focuses on several areas, including increased protection and indeed waste separation, emissions focus on air quality, and of course improved beach access. And I will go through them as quickly as possible in considering the time. But Madam Speaker, I do want to bring colleagues' attention to the fact that this year the government will complete.
There's so much people out there in a certain constituency right now who have no water, you know. St. Mary, one of them. Well, most of the parish, them not water. Because sometimes when them get the water lack of 4 hours. And now them come with these graphic, big argument. And them talk that from 2016, them talk about water, you know. And them in a power over 10 years now. And it still don't fix. So it's all about spending, talk about big spending, and where the money I go, we don't know. We can't see no real water. Them just break ground and say them going to do this and them going to do that. For much years now, and then come back and tell the same thing again in one new election. Yo, we tell you something, you know, we say Jamaica people who don't really make them people are really washing out like blood clot, dirty clothes, you know. Yeah, man.
5 new protected areas, including sections of Bengal, the Negril Environmental Protection Area, Long Mountain, Montpelier, and Canoe Valley will be completed this fiscal year. Additionally, the ministry, in collaboration with the Forestry Department, has declared
promises are
17
comfort to
new
a
forest
fool.
management areas under the Forest Act last year, in the last just concluded financial year, and is working on finalizing the declaration of 22 new forest reserves, which I intend to table in the House in the second quarter of the fiscal year. Madam Speaker, colleagues would recall a discussion we would have had in this House related to the declaration of the Constant Spring Golf Club as a forest management area to preserve the green space for generations to come. I'm happy to report that the document is at the printing office to be gazetted, so that commitment represents a commitment which has been kept. Jamaica has already protected 25% of its landmass and 15% of its EEZ. We expect to complete the 30% target, which is in line with global standards, well before 2030, and we are working to catch up on our marine protected areas. Madam Speaker, Jamaica's waste stream remains largely commingled, driving landfill pressure and marine leakage. We are implementing source separation, organic, recyclable, and residual streams, supported by public education, infrastructure rollout, and private sector participation. Madam Speaker, the government this year will advance a full national pilot for waste separation in public facilities. Madam Speaker, another area of concern is air quality. It is a public health imperative. We are tightening emission standards at stationary sources, enhancing vehicular inspection regimes, and piloting low-cost sensor networks to complement reference grade monitors. The policy objective is measurable to reduce PM2.5 and nitrous oxide exposure, especially in urban corridors and near industrial clusters. Madam Speaker, the government will advance plans for the introduction of tailpipe testing this year. Another issue that has dominated public discourse is the issue of beach access. Now, I believe it may be easier to have a ministerial statement to go through this particular section at a later date, but I would like to make a few points in summarizing the section that I have, even though I've circulated my notes on the subject. The Beach Control Act was passed in 1956 and was amended in 1973. 1973's amendment moved us to a licensing-based system. The policy attempt started in 1997 to deal with the access issues and was largely abandoned in 2000 because of a lack of consensus. So what you have is a period of policy blackout. What we have sought to accomplish with the new beach access policy and evolving the arrangements related to the licensing regime is to ensure that access is no longer incidental, developers are now part of the solution, and the policy is indeed implementable. Though the Beach Control Act still governs, this policy has embedded access into planning law mechanisms, has converted policy goals into administrative requirements, and forced alignment between tourism development and public rights. Madam Speaker, this policy has guaranteed windows and corridors to the sea, while clearly stating where Jamaicans have access to the foreshore. Beyond that, the commitment has been made in this House to ensure investment is made in the development of new public beach parks, some of which I know the member from East Central St. James will no doubt mention, including Prairie Beach, Madam Speaker. We have some major projects that I would like to highlight, Madam Speaker, under the environmental portfolio, which include the Relief Project launch by the Forestry Department, the Negril Coastline Works and rewetting of the Negril Morass, and of course restoration works at Helsha, and the development of a river control authority and a keys control authority. Madam Speaker, our forests were decimated by Hurricane Melissa. The Forestry Department has developed a strategic framework for how we will approach helping nature along. I'm happy to report that as at the end of June, we would have replanted some 300,000 trees already, Madam Speaker. There is far greater detail. I encourage colleagues to read same. I want to bring your attention to works that are underway in Negril. We would have completed our design for the canals that will re-wet the wetlands. Now, this is incredibly important even for shoreline stabilization and protecting what is a natural asset that is the envy of the world. That work, in terms of building the canals, member from Western Westmoreland, will commence this year. We also intend to complete our transaction work for the development of what is called an interpretive center in Westmoreland. Now, that will be in the Royal Palm Reserve, which would have been built by Mr. Siaga in the 1980s. We'll be renovating this area and ensuring that indeed we have an area where persons are able to go and study our endemic species, watch birds, and take river tours. Madam Speaker, another focus of ours is ensuring that the regulatory system can indeed be brought to life. That is why the government, through the ministry and indeed NEPA, will be developing a river management authority and a keys management authority that will be housed at NEPA. The River Management Authority will focus on risk mapping and early warning, sediment and debris management, enforcement against encroachment. The Keys Management Authority is necessary.
Yo, this is peer fuckery, you know. Peer photo up and shit with them graphic with them make up. This is a thing where they keep on a piece and a show people, and then people still not get the water. Them are this foolishness, you know, to my rascal eyes and ears, you know. And a lot of people look on Andrew Wallace now. This is something we see them do other day, and now what them do, them edit it and put clip and things like that and come and try to con fucking people and things like that. And that them do from a longer time. And people see them things and talk about, oh, labor rights, shower and all this blood clotting, and them still not get the help what them supposed to get. You know, see them people are blind and dumb and fool, right? Look at the big ass so little blood clot boy, they make a trick them and things like that. You look on this, where this a go? If them show them things and you get result, it's bad and too bad, you know, but them do this all the while, and you call this photo up. Photo up can run country. This is a fucking joke. We can't bother with this blood clot. Them people are joker. Fucking joker. We can't bother with them blood clot thing. I don't want blood clot see this. It's a waste of time. Waste of rascal time. Yeah man, waste of time. Cut this thing a short, it's fuckery.
Of the greater Portmore sewage,
this boy,
as well as the sewering of many other communities.
This boy, we call him, you know, Brother Tukuma, you know. Yeah, Matthew Samuda, he's a little blood clot brother Tukuma. We're born in England, I mean, you know, how him in a parliament. And he said if it was in PNP, they're going to have a big thing out of it. But because them get away with every fucking thing. Through bullies and all them things there. And lies. Yeah.
That have suffered. Sorry for going over time, Madam Speaker.
Go away, man. Run away, you bumble. Run away. You're the nice one. I make a beat bench for nothing at all, you know. But it's that also them organize them thing. And sometimes when we say the PNP now really beat bench, them like them fucking something wrong with them on. Them people get pay if you come beat bench when there's no substance here for them beat bench. But that is the plan. That's how government operate. When them rascal depend the rascal cash. When them on the cash. Them use them things to make them feel make them look good. Make public say, but it not work because people not idiot. It's not gonna work, I'm not working. It's not gonna work, it's not fucking working. Fucking joke.
We're saying is either the member is ready now.
Ready.
Member Crawford, you have elected to commence?
Yes, I will.
Thanks, member.
No problem.
So the Labour right them now. The PMP might beat the bench and them turn off the mic and you can't hear nothing. All them little nonsense them gone on to, you know. Even them little nonsense them gone on to. Look at that. When them a beat the bench here, pure nice. Mic them turn up high. Now the PMP, them a beat the bench and them turn off the mic. Why, if this is not low gutter politics, I don't blood clot, no. Yo.
Mic went off.
Mic went off. Oh, you turn off the fucking mic.
I thank the House for their patience. I would hope that some.
You turn off the fucking mic, you know.
We will get the benefit of the audiovisual as we move along. I want to say just a quick thanks to my colleagues on this side and the other for having been cordial with me and also having made me feel welcome back to the House. I want to also acknowledge within the galleries persons, friends of mine from the constituency and otherwise, and also persons in my support. And I want to publicly acknowledge my junior shadow person, or my deputy, newly minted Senator Paynes, who is also here and in the gallery. Madam Speaker, I stand here on behalf of the parents, teachers, administrators, and students who are the tenants of the education system, now in a state of progressive collapse. Their experience are not anecdotal, and today I will play the role of a forensic auditor seeking to understand and examine the structural integrity of the system at every level, to identify and name the specific points of failure, and to determine and hold accountable those who are charged with the management of the system. Madam Speaker, the evidence along the education system of inadequacy is stark and continuous. The evidence of failure is documented, consistent, and undeniable. The causes of failure are structural, chronic, and policy-driven, and the inadequate responses are generally immaterial and has fallen catastrophically short of what is necessary. Failure, as we indicated, Madam Speaker, is consistent across every level of education. The evidence of failure is not isolated and it's systematic. I've documented this evidence and it's consistent across all levels. Madam Speaker, it is the duty of education to transition our children up each floor and eventually across onto the bridge of productivity and economic participation. However, that failure is stark. The crisis starts at the very top. Jamaica's tertiary enrollment stands at 19% for the ages of 19 to 14. And so for the ages of 19 to 14, only 19% of Jamaicans are currently enrolled in tertiary education. An example can be done for Barbados at 65% and Trinidad at 36%. Within the labor force, only 16% have a tertiary exposure or education. And when one considers our youth that are not in education, employment, or training, it currently stands at 124,000. Madam Speaker, an assessment of our labor force indicates that the vast majority of exposure is at the upper secondary level. And please note I did not say completion, but exposure. The 51% of the labor force have been exposed to the upper secondary level, 5% only to the primary level, 20% at the lower secondary level, and 16% have been exposed at the tertiary level. Madam Speaker, the workforce is indeed moving in the wrong direction. The total labor force, Madam Speaker, has shifted by 12%. However, youth not in education, employment, or training has shifted 31%. Indeed, at this point, Madam Speaker, in 2020, there was 108,000 of those young people not in education, training, or employment. This 2025 was registered at 124,700. Additionally, Madam Speaker, in 2020, tertiary enrollment for 19 to 24 was 22%. It has shifted downwards to now only 19%. Madam Speaker, we have 887 workers without qualification at current. Indeed, the total without qualification in 2020 was 727,000. In 2025 is 887,000. In just 5 years, approximately 160,000 more persons have entered the workforce without qualification. This is larger than some of our parishes' population. Additionally, our men are extremely at risk, as in 2025, 560,000 of the men in employment was without any form of qualification, and for women, 327,000. This, I must point out, Madam Speaker, does not include the 722,000 that is not within the labor force, the set that have withdrawn themselves from seeking opportunity to work. So indeed, if one should assume correctly that the vast majority of those that have given up on the probability of employment would be in the same position as the 887,000 that have no qualification, we have at this point over 1 million persons of the ripe working age that is without any qualification at all. One would therefore be wondering if Heart Trust NTA is coming to the rescue. However, Madam Speaker, the simple answer to that is a categorical no. Indeed, in 2024-2025, Heart NSTA enrolled 137,442 persons. One would be surprised to note that the certification rate of those persons was only 39.3%. Of the 137,422, only 53,669 were certified. This indicates that over 80,000 having been enrolled for that particular year did not achieve the most basic of certification.
Big disgrace.
Madam Speaker,
under the JLP.
this is a continuation of the assessment by the Auditor General in 2020 that found that the average certification rate for Heart Trust NTA over the 5-year period of assessment was 45%. Madam Speaker, instead of seeking to fix things, the Heart Trust NTA decided to surrender their ambition and indicated that the goal that they had at that time of 70 to 80% certification was indeed, and I quote, a stretch goal, and that they would revise from an internal assessment the expectation to 45 to 50%. Madam Speaker, an analysis of this year suggests that they even missed that particular goal, because we are now at 39%. Madam Speaker, the OECD global average is 62%, and many, many other institutions are way above Jamaica. When you look at this reality, one recognizes that we are facing a serious problem. Now, when we further analyze those that were actually certified, the vast majority was certified at level 2, what is now currently the lowest level of certification, as they have been phasing out level 1. 70% were level 2, 15% were level 3, and 3% was level 4. It made no sense for us to continue from 5 to 8, as the numbers were indeed immaterial. The level 2 are supervised workers that cannot operate without supervision. Madam Speaker, When we go to the secondary floor, it continues. Only 19%. The Lord is good all the time. So, page 15. Page 15. And the staff, of course, of the parliament, page 15. One more down. Go down. Yes. Next again. Next. All right. So as we can see here, only 1 in 5 students leave with the basic certification that is necessary, equivalent to what the United States call a GED. There would have been a uproar in the United States, member from St. James, appropriately dressed in the national colors, if the GED rate was only 19%. Indeed, if you look at the numbers, because sometimes the percents become misleading, of the 30-something thousand, 34,000 that sat the exam, 6,000 achieved the basic minimum, and 26,000 did not achieve that minimum of 5 subjects, including math and English. Now, if you look, Madam Speaker, that this have been consistent for a while. Over a 10-year period, you would have 260,000 that did not achieve 5 subjects, including math and English. To the opposite, you will have only 60,000 that would have achieved this. So, this is 1 year. This is 1 year. Now, next, go next. Yes. It is said, Madam Speaker, that the ministry has therefore sought to disregard and to sell a lie in the conversation moving forward. And this has been proven when we consider math and English, as has been reported by the Ministry of Education, and as is the reality when it comes to the assessment of the numbers. More recently, Madam Speaker, we saw a headline in the newspaper that suggested that improved performance in 2025 CSEC English and Math. There, the minister suggested that Jamaica was outpacing and outperforming the Caribbean. And I would quote, the minister says, regional average is 80% for student pass in English. We have surpassed the region in English A. The region average for mathematics is 39% of students passing mathematics. We are above the regional average again in mathematics, and unquote. However, Madam Speaker, this quote is deeply misleading. A serious assessment of the mathematics passes would have shown the following. 1, the lowest level of enrollment in the last 2 decades. In 2025, enrollment was 32,339 compared to 2023 of 35,768. Of course, one may assume that maybe the birth rate have changed. A quick assessment of a reasonable period for which a 16 or 17-year-old will be doing the exam indicated that only 200 more persons were born in that specific year. So what this is showing is that in 2025, there was less participation of the age cohort in the examination and school process. Secondly, in 2025 was also the lowest in 2 decades sitting, 17,831. And the examiners wanted to assess by suggesting that the pass rate was only for those who sat the examination. This big hullabaloo and grandstanding about moving from 37% to 44% only included 9 additional passes. In 2024, we had 7,817. In 2025, we had 7,826. Indeed, Madam Speaker, while it is that if you look as a percentage of those who sat the examination at 43%, if you look at a percent of those enrolled, our mathematics passes is 24.2%. Now, it must be admitted and added that all our children are to be doing mathematics and English.
Yeah,
and
put
so
things on them, Damon Crawford.
would have been
Put things on them.
at this particular point.
Put on things on them.
Madam Speaker, there is also
Put things on them, Damon Crawford. Put it on them.
Analysis suggested that approximately 20% of the age cohort were not even enrolled. They had given up on school. And so therefore, while it's 24% of the enrollment, it's 19.3% of the age cohort that passed mathematics. Madam Speaker, this grandstanding of ahead of the Caribbean has been proven untruthful, as the vast majority of the Caribbean countries that we seek to compare enroll more than 70%, sit 70% of their enrollment sit these examinations. We go further, Madam Speaker, to move to the English language.
PLI them depend, man. PLIs.
Lowest level of enrollment, lowest level of persons sitting the examinations. However, an assessment of those who pass would indicate that of sitting, we are at 85%, but at enrollment, we are at 51.7%. If we go back to the conversation that the minister herself had, that we were almost at 80% as a Caribbean average, that 51% would be far from the Caribbean average. Madam Speaker, is it therefore within our permit to ignore thousands of Jamaican children who had not been given even the opportunity as assessed by their teachers to enter, and then claim that we are improving if we should do a reduction of those who sit and the percent from those who pass? Back up. Madam Speaker, at the primary level, it continues. The fourth-grade literacy rate in 2025 indicated 65% at full literacy. This is down from 84% in 2015. Madam Speaker, we're moving in the wrong direction. For English language, at the PEP level, over 10,000 students did not achieve basic proficiency. And in mathematics, almost over 12,000 did not achieve basic proficiency. Madam Speaker, at that level, we found that less than 60% were proficient in all courses. From the age of 12, the failing is evident and prevalent in our children going forward. Madam Speaker, we move to the basement. And here, at the early childhood level, an assessment was done of 4-year-olds to see if they're ready for education. Of the 29,729 that were assessed, only 54% was said to be at the level for ready for education. The other 46% was said not to be at the level for education. Now, Madam Speaker, the assessment of this information goes further, where it indicated that almost 11% did not show up for assessment. So this 29,000 is not indicative of the total number of persons enrolled, as many, about 11%, did not show up to be assessed. The actual assumption that is reasonable is the vast majority of those did not see themselves prepared to be ready at age 4 for education. Madam Speaker, what we have seen in early childhood education is a habit of underfunded and low contributions. Indeed, when one looks at early childhood chronically underfunded, public funding 24.24% of GDP, the international standard is 1%. Fully certified institutions are at 15%, and degree holders, teachers with degrees within the sector, are at 18.7%. Madam Speaker, 4.3 years of learning, the World Bank indicated, Jamaicans have been going to school for 11.4 years, is likely to have effective learning of 7.1 years, indicating that an average student in 11th grade is performing at the 7th grade level because of 4.3 years of learning loss. That actual assessment by the World Bank, same study, indicated that because of inaccess to adequate education and health, approximately the Jamaicans per individual would be 53% as productive when they grow up as if they got the adequate education and the adequate health care. This, Mr. Prime Minister, is where the productivity problem starts and where the productivity solution lies. The actual assessment of these realities have proven that there are certain gaps in the literature that have contributed to this failure. One of those gaps include technology, absenteeism, nutrition, etc. And I indicate here a comparison of Campion and Holy Trinity. Not to disparage Holy Trinity, but to just show the reality. It is certain among all of us, and we will bet a reasonable sum, that the person at Campion, all things held constant, have greater access to technology. We would accept that the person of Campion compared to Holy Trinity is less absent. We would accept that nutrition is more available to the person at Campion. We will accept that teachers and quality teachers are more likely to be constantly and consistently available at Campion. We will accept that Campion students would have much greater access to learning materials, more parent involvement, also highly motivated or a higher level of motivation, and have gotten early exposure. This is where the solution lies, Madam Speaker. Now let's assess what the government has done. In contributing to the technology gap, the government has pronounced and celebrated 3,000 laptops being distributed to 500 primary schools. Now, first of all, it means that about 300 primary schools have gotten no laptop. However, those who got a laptop only got 6 laptops. So therefore, the schools, to share among themselves, receive 6 laptops each. Now, that assessment have been done here with the different schools and the frequency. Those schools that we have 1 to 100 students, they are getting 18 minutes per laptop. The one with 100 to 200, they're getting 9 minutes. And if we go to ones with 500 to 1,000, they're getting 3 minutes from the laptop. Go Now, further, Madam Speaker, the minister indicated in the Standing Finance Committee that we would have, the target was 30 laptops. Now, the goal is 60 minutes per day. In that assessment, therefore, 235 of the smallest schools, or 10% of our children, would be adequate. However, the other 90% would still, even with the goal, not be adequate. It is taking less time to turn on your phone, to put in your password, than the child will have with a laptop. When it comes to the nutrition gap, we have seen where between 25 and 33% of students arrive at school hungry. That is a research in Jamaica. That between 25 and 33% don't get hungry when they get to school. They arrive at school hungry, leave them yard hungry. We also found 55% food insecurity, 30% skipping meals, and 29% have been hungry for at least 1 day in that week of assessment. Madam Speaker, what has been the government intervention? Big and bold in the budget was that they were allocating $347 million for basic school nutrition. When one analyzed that there's 111,000 persons currently at the basic school level, at 190 days, this translates to $18.24 per child per day. This is the contribution that the government highlights that they're giving. Additionally, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I'm asking for protection. Additionally, Madam Speaker, the PATH program has over 180,000 children participating on PATH. The government has decided that they will target for breakfast 69,000 students. One assessed the $1 billion that they have allocated. Those 69,000 students, that is not inclusive of approximately 110,000 students who are in need and on path. Those 69,000 have a contribution of $76.26 per day. Madam Speaker, the principals have been concerned, and there have been high levels of quarrel among them for this reality. One of the most recent was that a principal wrote to the teachers that they will only be able to distribute for the rest of the term 3 days per week because it's not sufficient to spend on the entire amount. Madam Speaker, we also suffer from chronic absenteeism. Chronic absenteeism is said to be missing 10% of the school year. That's 19 days. We are going as high as 35% in some of our regions, and the lowest region is 18%, that is Kingston. So every single region is in the category of chronic absenteeism. Indeed, in some deep rural areas, we have as high as 55% absenteeism, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, they have indicated in a hurricane recovery myth that all our schools are open. However, Madam Speaker, assessment in that suggests that there is hidden absenteeism. What is meant by hidden absenteeism? A child is only perceived absent if he was supposed to be at school. At this point, there are some schools still offering 3 days on and 2 days off to have a rotation of students, causing among the children a learning loss of 40 to 60% because they were not supposed to be at school, not calculated in the absenteeism numbers. Indeed, the newspaper indicated that in St. Elizabeth, over 400 students were still not found. But if you don't only read the headline, you will see further down where the police himself indicated we went into a very small sample to collect information, and we reached 400 before we went into the large sample. Indeed, despite the Ministries of Education pronouncement, the president of the Students' Council Association for that region indicated that in and over St. James, St. Elizabeth, and Manchester, they were observing less than half the usual capacity in the classrooms. This is what we are going, Madam Speaker. As we move forward, we see Region 1 is 18%, Region 2 is 20%, 3, 18%, Region 4, 28 to 34%, Region 6, 35%. Every single region is in the phase of chronic absenteeism. Madam Speaker, there's been a reality that absenteeism leads to dropout. And the research done by the World Bank have indicated that at the different levels of education, we can are attending or enrolled. At the upper secondary, 58%, because more and more they have dropped out. Madam Speaker, when we go down and look at some of the reasons for this dropout, we see that 41% of the boys simply said they're no longer interested. Now, if we should look at the total number between 2010 and 2017, you will realize that there's an increase in the number that just don't want to attend school. There's a decrease in the value of education in that period of time. In 2010, 90% said they simply didn't want to. In 2017, 32% said they simply didn't want to. When we look at our boys, they are the ones that clearly don't want to. But look at our girls. 49% had to drop out because of pregnancy. This is a major problem that we have to consider, Madam Speaker. And to this, of the total female dropout, teen pregnancy, Madam Speaker, has become a problem in this country. Indeed, the average as recorded by the Jamaican institutions is 6,000 per year. Madam Speaker, if one looks at the reality that there is approximately 13 years of education between age 6 to age 17, we will recognize that in school at this time, 78,000 children are children of children in school at this particular point in time, looking at the rate of 6,000 per year. Madam Speaker, we therefore are asking for a reconsideration once again of the age of consent, and I once again believe that this Parliament should consider the movement from 16 to 18 as we move from a 5-year secondary institution to a 7-year secondary experience going forward. Madam Speaker, we have to protect our children, and to that extent, Madam Speaker, we're asking for these things to be considered. Madam Speaker, the government response have been failed bus system. They have also impacted negatively the teachers' ownership of vehicles, despite the insistence that the principals and the guidance counselors should move into these areas to interface with the children and get them back. There has been no increase in the PATH program. Madam Speaker, there's an exodus of teachers moving out of school. 10 years ago, 350 resignations in that year. In 2022, 1,800 resignations in that particular year. Madam Speaker, additionally, 145 math teachers resigned in 2022. That's 10% of the math teachers that are available to the system. Madam Speaker, the government has failed with no retention plan. They have also insulted our teachers with a 2% increase proposal, simply have replaced the 1% NHT, and also they have not considered the band that the teachers were assigned by Ernst & Young to put those persons from band 4 to band 5. Madam Speaker, we don't have to discuss safety because we have seen the level of safety concerns within our schools. Madam Speaker, as it relates to early childhood, it has been proven that the returns on a $1 investment in early childhood is up to $17 for an investment in $1 of early childhood. A longitudinal study in Jamaica indicated that 25% in additional earning for those at the age of 22 once they accessed early childhood education. And at the age of 31, they were earning 43% more than those who did not access early childhood education. Madam Speaker, they earn more, they are significantly less likely to engage in crime. Minister Chang transitions more smoothly through the entire system, are more likely to attend school consistently. They build cognitive foundations for lifelong learning, and also they are more likely to complete their education. Madam Speaker, the Minister of Education has sought to paint over these cracks and indicated that only 108 early childhood institutions did not have a degree-trained teacher. One access to the census done by the ECI, the Institute, the Early Childhood Institute, indicated that only 1,518 teachers and 658 are sure not to have a trained teacher. One wonders, therefore, where did we get that information of 108? Now, this trained teacher must also be established to be an exaggeration because most are diploma trained, despite the government's insistence that they should be degree trained. Additionally, the permanent secretary from the Ministry of Education indicated that they were investing $38 billion in early childhood education when the budget before us indicated only $8.5 billion. So one must wonder where they're getting this. Of the Constitution, the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedom indicate that it is the right of every child who is a citizen of Jamaica to publicly funded tuition in a public education institution at the pre-primary and primary levels. Madam Speaker, that has not been assessed. And therefore, when the Minister of Education answered in the Standing Finance Committee that she believed that this was actually being implemented, it left me with no further action to take than to seek the court's intervention to determine if this right has been satisfied. Madam Speaker, the system failure is stark. Underfunding is a breach of the Constitution. Of 30% to 90% are being absent is a breach of the constitutional right. And to that extent, Madam Speaker, on the 7th of April 2026, I filed a constitutional challenge on behalf of the people of Jamaica, and today we are seeking to inform the government that we'll be seeking a constitutional assessment on if the right to a free primary at a free institution is being actually distributed to our children. Madam Speaker, in a just society, education is not a privilege to be managed. It is a right to be guaranteed. It is the true intention of the members and decide to place children at the heart of the Jamaican future. Madam Speaker, in 2011, we reached across the aisle and established the right. I believe in 2026, we should once again reach across the aisle and ensure that the right is actually implemented. Madam Speaker, we are not here only to celebrate its existence, but we want to implement that right in full. Madam Speaker, what we have presented is a clear and present reality that the failures in education gets worse under this government, and that there must be an intervention for our children to once again become the center of development in the Jamaican situation. Thank you again.
Thanks, member. House Leader.
Madam Speaker, we thank the member for staying within the time limit for the presentation. And I am sure the presentation will be the subject of significant review. But we thank the member for his contribution. And his final slide about let's go together is a good note to end on and to move into the continuation of the debate around the National Reconstruction Authority. Let us go together. Madam Speaker, as we are in public business, we are going to continue the debate on the National Reconstruction Authority. I know that there are some members who have indicated. I know, so no, we're going to continue. We're in public business now. We had suspended the agenda to come to public business. Under public business, we're going to continue. We're going to continue the debate on NARA. So I'm going to ask, Madam Speaker, that we suspend the sectorial debate until next week. Let's suspend the sectorial.
People don't blood clot, yeah.
Some members
Then don't give DAMION CRAWFORD no slot extra time.
There is nothing in respect of the agenda items for today that would prevent us from continuing in public business with the debate on the NARA bill. We now ask that the House approve the suspension of the sectoral debates to continue next week. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I was indicating, we will.
Chef and chain.
But as we are in public business, and those matters don't touch on concern the NARA bill.
So I want to come like something stuck in a blood clot throat. I don't know where my sock.
And take the NARA bill through all its stages today. So the members who have not yet participated, who intend to participate.
This is a control parliament, you know. So control. They're not going by the book at all.
Both leaders of opposition business and the leader of government business to provide the names of the members who are expected to participate today in the debates in respect of the NARA bill. And I've also asked for a sequence so that it is far more orderly. So I will start with the opposition. The first member on the opposition side slated to speak is the member from Westmoreland Eastern.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me begin by making one thing absolutely clear. On this side of the House, we do not oppose reconstruction. We do not oppose resilience. And we certainly do not oppose urgent action for the people of Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, Hanover, St. James, Trelawney, and all the other parishes that are recovering from Hurricane Melissa. What we oppose firmly, responsibly, and unapologetically is construction without safeguards. Because, Madam Speaker, history teaches us that when large sums of money, emergency powers, and weak oversight converge, the result is not efficiency, it is risk. Risk of nepotism, cronyism, victimization, maladministration, and rampant corruption. The core problem, Madam Speaker, is a gap between promise and law. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister delivered his presentation, and in his presentation he spoke about transparency, accountability, independent oversight, and national unity. But this House is not voting on a speech. We are voting on a law. And when we examine the law, the bill before us, we see a troubling pattern. Many of the safeguards described in the Prime Minister's presentation are not in the bill. So, Madam Speaker, because I realize that there are issues about the presentation and the bill, I decided to examine both carefully. And in looking at it, I went to the Memorandum of Objects and Reasons because we are being asked to just follow some things blindly. And I am not willing to do so because I have seen persons oppose even those things which are not disputable. For instance, I am happy today to read the Memorandum of Objects and Reasons to see that we have finally decided that the hurricane actually made landfall in New Hope in Westmoreland. It took us months to agree that Westmoreland was where the hurricane made landfall. Months. Several reports said that it made landfall in Black River, which then affected how resources were mobilized. There are several records to show.
On a point of order.
Several records to show.
No, listen. On a point of order.
Several reports.
The member.
Several reports.
The member is misleading the House. There was no official report emanating from any authorized agency of government that indicated that the hurricane made landfall outside of New Hope. The member is misleading the House to give the impression, as he has said, that a wrong pronouncement was made and the resources followed suit. That is incorrect, and the member should withdraw.
Madam Speaker, several persons. I can make my presentation today, and there is nobody in here that can tell me that I can't make my presentation. So, look here. Don't start. Don't start.
Fire.
You know, Madam Speaker, point of order about what? The same thing that he said?
Madam Speaker, we can't move on without addressing this point. He said, we said, which suggested that that we can send for the Hanson. He said, we said many times that the hurricane made landfall.
You say we.
You
know what's a fucking we? He said report. He said report out there, the report.
So the member can continue, but he cannot.
The fuck you little go sit down, you little batty boy, man.
The point.
Piece of shit. The man was say we. He said report. Many times.
Madam Speaker.
Fuck you little blood clot.
The memorandum of objects and reasons said that the hurricane traversed the island, resulting in catastrophic loss and damage to lives, livelihood, economic, social, cultural, and environmental systems. It went on to say that the hurricane damage is estimated at $12.2 billion US. Now, a GIS article in November of 2025 said that re-dwellings, we had damage to 156,000 and that 24,000 of them were totally lost. I have looked throughout this bill, Madam Speaker, about reconstruction, and I am yet to find the section that speaks about the reconstruction of the 156,000 houses that were damaged and the 24,000 that were destroyed. Significant housing loss. We came here and the Minister of Energy made a point that we needed to mobilize resources to get resources to JPS so that we could have electricity returned to the residents by the end of February. Today is the 28th of April 2026, and over 2,500 residents in eastern Westmoreland are still without electricity.
Madam Speaker, the member is misleading the House. If you look at Hansard as to what I said, February 28th, save and accept for those areas that had specific challenges. He failed to add that. And I can say, Madam Speaker, I can say that as of today, we are at 99.6% with under 2,000 people still without electricity to be done in the month of April to May. So, if you're going to quote me properly, please.
You know, Madam Speaker, I'm not here to pick a fight with the Minister of Energy. I'm not. No, I'm not. Madam Speaker, when you say 99.6% of the country has been restored, the report that I got a week ago, and the minister said at a press conference a week ago that there were approximately 3,000 residents without electricity, and that 2,561 of them are from Westmoreland. The report from the CEO of JPS is that 2,561 residents from eastern Westmoreland are without electricity. So I don't understand how that is becoming a controversial matter. The hurricane made landfall in the constituency, devastated the constituency, and we have seen no priority attention in there to get back electricity to these persons. And when we have this bill, I am taking this bill.
Madam Speaker, there can only be one minister of energy at a time.
Minister, hold on. I cannot hear you at all. Members. Go ahead, Minister. I could not hear a word.
Madam Speaker, there can only be one minister of energy at a time. And it so happens that that happens to be me at this particular moment. I am going to read from a report of the 26th, to show that he's misleading the House. He's misleading the House. As of today's date, it is 99.71% restoration. Westmoreland is at 94% with 1,937 persons still without electricity. And in St. Elizabeth, 80. This is a report that I got hours ago today from the Jamaica Public Service. So you can't say that the managing director of JPS giving you a different report than he's giving me. You are wrong, and you must admit it and stop misleading the House.
Yo.
Madam Speaker, am I going to be allowed to make my presentation?
Members, if a point of order is raised and the person who is on their feet debating wish to respond to the point of order, I'm going to... hold on, no, you're missing the point, member, and I won't name you. It is for the benefit of the person who is on their feet so they don't lose time. So member...
I don't like that, I'm try to do it. Them set up to do that.
Who will speak after. When a point of order is raised, if you would like to respond...
They must kill time, I'll share kill time right there so now, and then say, well, then time up.
Time does not continue to run.
I run time now. Shut the fuck up and man get time with them things, man.
If you are not responding to the point of order, then your presentation...
It's for your tactics them are going with, you know.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
And I'm not blood class, see that.
I want to be abundantly clear. The report that I got from the CEO just over a week ago stated that you have 2,561 customers in eastern Westmoreland that are without electricity. That is the report that was given. If you simply go to Google and type in VAS electricity 2,561, it will come up. Now, the point I am making, Madam Speaker, is that I want to support this bill because the people in the constituency have been devastated. But I want to see in this bill the reconstruction for the people in eastern Westmoreland. The small business operators whose businesses were built in the same way that their houses were built also lost their businesses. The small farmers down there, the shopkeepers who need electricity to refrigerate their items, they don't have it. And I am not seeing that in this bill, and that is what I want to see in there. How it is that we are going to impact on the small people in eastern Westmoreland who are suffering. Today being April 28th is exactly 6 months since the passage of the hurricane. And we still have these persons without the basic commodity. you know, Madam Speaker, I came today, you know. I came prepared because I knew this was going to happen. I came with my Bible, you know. I came with my Bible. I knew this was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. I came prepared because I knew it was going to happen. And I want to turn it, Madam Speaker. Proverbs 1 verse 10, Madam Speaker. My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. I am not consenting today to the disruption that is coming from over there. No consent today. No. Madam Speaker, the priority program of the government to deal with the housing situation is the roofs program. The roofs program, Madam Speaker, has left a lot of persons without receiving any assistance. But I'm not even going there yet, Madam Speaker. I'm talking about those who have received something. First thing is that if we are talking about reconstruction and resilience, how is it that somebody would have lost their entire home, which is what severe represents in the roof program, and the allocation is $500,000? Who can rebuild a house with just $500,000? Who can rebuild a resilient house with just $500,000? There is absolutely nothing that speaks to that in this. And members whose constituencies were not affected can say whatever they want to say. When you travel across eastern Westmoreland and the parish of Westmoreland, several homes still have tarpaulin on them. Several homes still have tarpaulin on them. Right? Now, Madam Speaker, up to this morning, I got a call up to this morning. An individual who received a grant.
The big pussy Juliet will say, watch her bumble one. She personally not fucking doing her job, you know. She run on the clock. Run on the clock.
Before you make your point of order.
I run on the clock, you know.
Members, Deputy Speaker.
I run on the clock. I use Sykes.
Members, I am not going to interrupt. I am not going to interrupt unless I am asked for the protection by the member. I will allow you to continue your debate. So where a member needs my intervention in today's debate, you ask for it. No, that's what I am definitely doing, member. No, not at all. Especially the member who doesn't need my protection. Members, in addition, let me help you with appreciating what happens for the general public. For the general public, the members who are seated behind the presenter who are shouting in the mic, you actually disturb their presentation, particularly in respect of the public listening because of how the mic system operates, far more than persons who are further away. So, just for our understanding, when the noise comes from both sides of the house, and particularly when it comes from close to the person presenting, you significantly disturb the presentation of the member closest to you. Now, there is a point of order being raised. Minister Charles,
them take them time or ask like run on the clock, you know.
Point of order.
They plan for this.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
All this like a bald piece of shit.
My best to listen
Look at
to
him.
the full sentence from
Look at him.
member. But
Sin, he look like a
I'm not
sin.
hearing you well. You have to project because
I'm saying I was trying my best to listen before I call for the point of order to see if the sentence in completion would have not misguided the country. But when the member gives the impression that the roofs program was meant to provide all or rebuild all, it will mislead the country. Allow me. And why I say so, why I'm saying so, Speaker, is when you say that cannot rebuild, you will give somebody who's listening the impression that that was the intention of the government when we have other programs under the shelter recovery that provide full solutions, right? So the roofs program is never meant to be a full solution. There are other elements of the shelter recovery program that do so. It's very important then that the
So we never hear about that before.
mislead the country.
Go sit down, man. You look a bald piece of shit.
Thank you, please.
Charles.
Madam Speaker.
would you be so kind to turn your mic back on? Once you have intervened, please turn your mic off. I'm trying not to turn off the mic of the presenter.
Madam Speaker, I'll move on. The point I am making, and I am being very clear about the point that I'm making. If the roofs program was not intended to address the 156,000 persons that had damages to their dwelling, or the 24,000 that have total loss, then it would mean that those people, their reconstruction would need to be in this bill. And that is the point that I'm making, that if we are discussing reconstruction and resilience, then the housing damage that was suffered, which is a significant percentage of the 12.2 billion US dollars, then that must get priority attention in the bill that is on reconstruction. No, I got a call today, Madam Speaker, and the individual was complaining that they haven't gotten anything from roofs. And so I checked with the ministry. And when I checked, the ministry said that the person already benefited from a program through TEF. So I checked as to how much did the person benefit from TEF. The person got $100,000 worth of material. And based on that, the person is ineligible to benefit from the roofs program. Which means this individual who suffered total loss to their dwelling and under the roofs program would have qualified for $500,000. Because they got $100,000 a tourism worker, they now become ineligible to benefit from the roofs program. That is something that must be addressed.
They must squeeze money, man. A squeeze money. A pinch money. Money pinch at them.
I am on the political platform. I am one of the most strident politicians you will find, making my political point. But when I'm in here, Madam Speaker, I'm talking about the governance and how the lives of the people that I represent are being affected. Now, Madam Speaker, this contradiction between the PM's presentation and the bill is seen in several places. Oversight is promised, but is not legislated. We were told that there would be an independent oversight body, JAMROC, modeled after EPOC. We were told it will provide public accountability, independent scrutiny, and even opposition representation. But, Madam Speaker, JAMROC is not in the bill. The PM claims robust independent oversight, but the bill does not create it. There is no statutory body
One piece of shit,
with
man.
the appropriate
Thief in
governance
piece of big nose,
structure.
piece of shit.
And if
Watch him.
you look at the PM's presentation.
Yeah, quint, you don't blood clot quintet.
To point out some examples.
You don't
He said
quint
that
yet.
after the great East Japan earthquake of 2011, Japan established a dedicated reconstruction agency. What he did not tell us is that it had a board. He then went on to speak about Dominica established the Climate Resilient Execution Agency, CREED. What he didn't tell us was that it had a board. Then he went on to speak about in Jamaica, former Prime Minister Percival James Patterson, the great man from Eastern Westmoreland, established the Office of National Reconstruction after Hurricane Ivan. When he did so, Madam Speaker, he wanted a non-political individual to chair the committee. And he decided that he was going to second someone from the EOJ. And so he seconded none other than Danville Walker, who ended up not being non-political after all, because he contested the election in central Manchester. But he chaired it. There was no overreach. They had a committee that had representation from the PNP, from the JLP, from NGOs, from private sector, and they had to get approval for the projects that they were doing. So to just give the examples without speaking of the governance framework that was behind those examples is misleading. Now, there is no legal requirement for independent monitoring, no reporting schedule, no obligation to publish oversight reports. Instead, what the bill says, it says that the minister may give direction to the authority, and the authority shall comply. Madam Speaker, that is not independent oversight. That is executive control. As the House is being asked to rely on executive assurances instead of legislative safeguards, you cannot ask Parliament to pass hard powers into statute and accept the soft safeguards on trust. There is a concentration of power in the executive. Madam Speaker, let us examine the structure being created under this bill. The PM appoints the CEO. The minister determines the CEO terms, remunerations, and conditions. The minister can issue binding direction. The cabinet determines which projects proceed. The authority cannot implement plans without cabinet approval. And critically, there is no governing board. Clear accountability without independent oversight is not accountability. It is concentration of power. It is heavy ministerial and cabinet control over appointment, approvals, direction, project flow. What the government calls streamlined accountability may in practice become streamlined political control. Reprocurement. This is possibly the most serious omission. Madam Speaker, let us turn to procurement, the single most sensitive area in any reconstruction program. The Prime Minister himself admitted that the procurement framework is not in the bill and will instead be created by ministerial order. This is the Prime Minister. On the specific question of procurement, the procurement framework for NARA is not incorporated in the bill itself. It is the government's intention that the Minister of Finance will issue an order under Section 3, Subsection 3 of the Public Procurement Act 2015, exempting NARA from the standard procurement regime and specifying the particular terms and conditions that will apply to NARA's procurement activities. End of quote. Madam Speaker, let us pause right there. Parliament is being asked to create the authority, grant it power to spend billions, allow it to procure goods, works, and services without knowing the procurement rules that will govern those contracts. No tendering principles, no publication requirement, no conflict of interest provision, no mandatory disclosure framework for awards.
Put the camera up on Andrew Wellness. I want to see his face.
After. As the member from South Manchester said,
Oh, DAMION CRAWFORD now at the bench. Him not sit down so quiet.
Blank check without
You understand them, you know?
Extra. Yes. You don't hear the quotation. You don't hear the quotation. There are extraordinary powers to override existing laws. Madam Speaker, the bill will not merely coordinate, it overrides. It allows the authority to direct agencies on how to process approvals, impose deadlines, require concurrent approvals, proceed without waiting on other approvals, and even modify or make exception to zoning requirements. And if agencies resist, the authority can apply for a step-in order, where the minister effectively grants the approval himself with full legal effect. Madam Speaker, speed is necessary, but speed must not also a process that remains internal to the executive. There are transparency claims.
You claim a sabotage all the blood clot internet.
Operates with unprecedented transparency. But what does the bill actually require? One, a register of projects and the obligation with criminal penalties for disclosure. There is no requirement to publish procurement awards, no requirement to publish contracts, no requirement to publish step-in decisions. 4 months dashboard. Madam Speaker, a registry is not transparency. Member from St. Andrew North Central. The FAST program, Madam Speaker, that is narrowly tailored disaster recovery is a broad investment fast-track regime. Madam Speaker, we are not here to block progress. We are not here to statutory oversight. There should and publications duties, guarantee opposition participation, and require semi-annual public reports. The procurement safeguards in law of all major contracts. With transparency, mandatory provision of project list and update, procurement awards, directive issues, the parliamentary oversight. There should be mandatory semi-annual reports to Parliament, not in closing, Madam Speaker, the bill is being presented as a vehicle for national transformation, and it may very well be. The country needs speed, yes, but the country needs safeguards. If Jamrock is essential, put it in the bill. If
them a chip out the fucking internet, you know, deliberately, you know. Yeah.
If those measures
blood clot people have all the
truly
tricks of them blood clot trade,
they
you
should
know.
be written into the legislation before Parliament passes it. Checked power. We do not support rebuilding on a weak governance foundation. Let us not just
We'll take next the member from St. Andrew West. The member from St. Andrew Southwest.
What did this blood clot internet? You know?
I was within the time and certainly on point on the few points I wanted to make. And so I've actually written it. My responsibility as a member elected to this parliament by the people of Southwest St. Andrew, and my responsibility to ensure
me want to know when Matthew Samoudi attack, the internet never freeze once. And when them attack, it don't freeze once. When the jail people attack. Why keep on freezing when the PMP them attack? You know, see, this is the next part of them trickery again and deliberately. There's somebody a Rastler do that, you know. And them plan for this. Because they don't want them, the public hear certain things that they must say. Certain important point. Yeah. I don't understand this. It never freeze when them attack, but all of a sudden, yo, I don't understand what go on there saying, you know. It's a joke. They will freeze them deliberately.
I went and I looked
and then PMP no really look on them things, you know.
at the objects of the bill.
You see, this is fucking joke.
Consequent on the passage of Hurricane Melissa and for resilience.
This is sabotage.
And this has my full support.
Sabotage this, man.
Extremely concerned that such an important institution having with a blank check and unfettered powers. And that also there are very weak provisions for transparency and accountability.
This is definitely sabotage, you know.
Being railroaded through Parliament by a government who had no problem in 2017, yeah, agreeing to 400 and
yeah, man, sabotage this.
without any accountability. Even now, not a soul know where they carry them there. The same government with the ministers spending money on the...
Yeah, man, you see, when them attack certain things, them freeze them. This is not rasclad accidentally.
Costing more with no real accountability for distribution. Anybody here remember CMU and how taxpayers' money was being...
Yeah, you see, international something now, they don't want to hear them freeze her. And that I go on deliberately, that's the labor right them I do.
Those, yeah man, that was the used car scandal we talked about. The same issues, serious procurement breaches, contract bidding, rules being breached.
Yeah, freeze her, them a freeze her. Them freeze daytime, now them a freeze her. And we will listen when them attack and see them a freeze.
Western Hospitality Institute, yeah, that many thought was a eat a food prosperity thing go on. So when all that in most of the cases I've cited, what the Auditor General's recommendation was. It was about adherence to public procurement law.
Is that
So
joke,
you
you
can
know?
ignore the transparency and you can ignore procurement laws.
Then them not see them a freeze them. They can't then why them not sit down they said. You see them people really them in the politics and them
Several
really
times talking about the issues with procurement. And I have no difficulty if we believe that there needs to be changes. Yes? See that at work in this bill that is before us. Yeah? And so, Madam Speaker, through you, yes, outlining targeted amendments to the NARA bill, drawing from other jurisdictions. And I'm
that get boring now, you know. You know, freeze too much, it don't make no sense.
big sentiment with the concerns of the opposition that the Prime Minister and our public duty and pause for a while, review and rework and wheel and come again. Minister, I don't think so. I believe that at his core, he must have the people of Jamaica at heart. Yes, with these bills, and to see others just stuff their money, their pocket full of money, and don't have no concern. And that sense of working together would lead to a different outcome. So that's the first point I wanted to make in terms of why I am uneasy. Yeah? Heart. I am a local government practitioner. I have spent 20 years in local government, and therefore and gives NARA the right to ignore the professional advice of municipal corporations and mayors. It doesn't. One, to establish timelines for inspections, evaluations, and assessments, as well in 21. By the authority. The truth is that I get a sense of a very high-handed approach in how this is worded. We understand that. No question about that. But I am sure these approving entities are all on board. And therefore, there must be yeah? But NARA is designed to run roughshod over their opinions. Government with connected persons involved in one way or another with construction, some even being flagged for building breaches, in one way or another with construction, some even being flagged for building breaches. Yes, yeah. And therefore I am thinking that the NARA legislation should also include a provision to resolve the objections by agencies. Otherwise, what's the message that we are sending to everyone with an application before those same authorities?
Yeah, especially those who are not big business.
So what is it? Is only the big trousers man them can ignore parish council? The rest of us mortals have to go and make changes to our plans when they object to what we have in front of them? That for me don't sit right. It doesn't sit right. Quite frankly, Madam Speaker, I think there's a very easy fix for this, quite frankly. I believe that what we could do is simply include in the legislation actual pre-approval consultation. Yes? So that that mechanism is encompassed in the law itself. Madam Speaker, whether it is UHWI, Market Me, Cornwall Regional, CMU, WHI, Nestle, Petrojam, the purchase of used school buses, the lack of transparency, the questions around oversight, yes, loom large. They loom large. And then I look under part 2 of the bill, clause 7, and I see that the minister may appoint a committee to examine and report to the minister on any matter arising out of or connected with any of the authority's powers. But that is may. First of all, I believe that NARA needs a proper oversight committee, where that appointment is not may, but shall, in terms of these kinds of reports and overview. There should also be a mandatory reporting cycle to Parliament, as the opposition leader and others have signaled and suggested. So, Madam Speaker, as I take my seat, I want to say that all of what I have placed on the table does not leave me with a level of trust that would have me voting for this NARA legislation in its current form without specific clauses in the legislation to ensure greater transparency and accountability. Because at the end of the day, it's my children and grandchildren. It is going to be the people of Southwest St. Andrew, in fact, all Jamaicans, who are going to bear the burden of repaying this debt. Thank you.
The next presenter, next presenter is the member from St. Catherine West. Next presenter is a member from St. Catherine West Central.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, colleagues, I rise to make my contribution on this bill, the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority Act 2026. First of all, my view, having listened to members on both sides, particularly members on that side, is that this bill, Madam Speaker, should not be as controversial as it is made out to be. I really don't think so. However, I have an appreciation as to why this is the case. Madam Speaker, we exist, unfortunately, and I think there's enough responsibility to go around, in a low-trust society where many see actions of our political leaders and governments as sinister, and where some, recognizing the sentiments of a wider population who is cynical, see this as an opportunity to exploit for political advantage. And this is very unfortunate, because it bears very little to address the issues. What you get instead, Madam Speaker, and this is my own interpretation, not casting any judgment on anyone, is that the arguments that have emanated from this debate up to this point are stimulated by emotive objectives, rather than logical, practical, and contextual attempts at finding solutions to a crisis that affect the people that we represent. And I honestly do think that those who allow perfection to be the enemy of good are hurting the over 500,000 Jamaicans in the 5 critical parishes that have been impacted by this hurricane, Category 5, the first ever, while we here debate, prolong, and engage in emotive insinuations. Again, the consequence of a low-trust society. And I do believe, Madam Speaker, that as leaders we need to rise above this, and that this represents an opportunity for us to be one as a parliament and a government to solve the challenges that the people face. For me, Madam Speaker, there is a context. There is a context to this debate, this discussion. This is a context that has a practical component to which this bill seeks to address, and it appears is being ignored. For example, the member from Eastern Westmoreland, who I know has been impacted, and indeed 2 or so days after the storm, I went to his area, and I believe a week or so, he and I were at a similar location trying to address some of the challenges. And I saw the pain, rightfully so. But we were there, working together. But the member, I think, is, and I say so respectfully, is failing to appreciate when he speaks about the title of the bill and ignoring that the response to a crisis has to take place in stages, Madam Speaker.
With a broader idea, this idea of structured central intervention is not unknown in democratic systems. In the UK, the Planning Act 2008 allows the Secretary of State to intervene in nationally significant infrastructure applications and to assume the functions of examining and deciding the application. Listen and learn. In Trinidad and Tobago, the authority to grant planning permission is vested in the minister responsible for town and country planning, with applications processed by the planning division on the minister's behalf. In New Zealand, the Resource Management Act allows the minister to call in matters of national significance for central decision making. So while the NARA stepping order is a distinct Jamaican adaptation, the broader principle that central government may lawfully intervene where nationally important development requires urgency, coordination, or final determination, it is not without democratic precedent. It is not without democratic precedent. We have examples from democracies all over the world. Our very own Town and Country Planning Act already vests certain powers in the authority and the minister. Want to read section 12 of the act? You want me to read it? The authority, that is the planning authority, may give directions. The planning authority may, listen and learn, you will learn some law now. The planning authority may give directions to any local planning authority or to local planning authorities, generally requiring that any application for permission to develop land or all such applications of any class specified in the directions shall be referred to the authority instead of being dealt with by the local planning authority, and any such application shall be so referred accordingly. Hold on. So what we have now, so in other words,
printable chair workout guide for gentlemen who
plantocracy. Instead of heeding 28 civil society organizations, instead of heeding 29 members, ICU member, 29 members of parliament, instead of heeding the joint submission of Jamaicans for Justice and the Jamaica Environment Trust, this government presses forward. The Auditor General, even before this bill has even passed, has already launched a Hurricane Melissa Relief Governance Audit because the patterns of mismanagement were already present. They're visible in the early relief response. The Auditor General is already auditing the relief, and this government is passing a law to keep scrutiny away from the reconstruction. They have seen the scrutiny coming, and they are legislating it away. We are not building the NARA that Jamaica needs. We are building the conditions that will require another NARA when, God forbid, the predicted devastating earthquake strikes, or when the next killer storm comes to this beloved island. We are not building back better. We are building forward worse. But this time, with $2 trillion to accelerate the next collapse. Worse. Madam, Mr. Speaker, they may pass this bill today. You have the numbers. You may ignore the 28 civil society groups. You may dismiss the 29 MPs who have expressed concerns about this bill. You may look past the Bahamian forensic audit.
the Haitian failure, the Auditor General's work already in the public domain, your own scandals. You have the power to pass this bill today, but the people have the power to judge you tomorrow. When the people who are suffering from the hurricane, you don't talk, you are the Casanova of sweetheart deals. The Casanova of sweetheart deals. When the people who are suffering from the hurricane that passed 6 months ago and now face another hurricane season in 6 weeks, when they realize what was done here today, you will never be forgiven. So let my words go down in prophecy. This day will be remembered as the beginning of the end of this government. Because the mother in Maroon Town shall remember. The daughter in Darliston shall remember. The baby in Black River shall remember. The pensioner in Portmore shall remember. They will remember the future you stole from them. They will remember the better health care you removed from them. They will remember the hope that they lost on this day. History does not remember those who had power. It remembers those who use the power for the benefit of the powerless. This government will be remembered, but I promise you, not for the reason you imagine. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, but Alfred Dawes mashing up at the end. Yeah, but the kind of sloppy still, you know. Very sloppy. But anyway, so it go. Now go do more debate on this. Out and running, out and going, late night, out.
A big sound up here, big tune. Ja oli Emmanuel I, boy. Ja Gideon, I'm a Gideon. The Gideon, I'm a Gideon. The Gideon, I'm a Gideon, well. Gideon go busting out them head again. So much oppression poor people face right now. Them crying out for freedom. Them crying out for free speech. Then said them want to stand up like them black liberators, like Malcolm X and Martin Luther. And the ancient monarchy will come pave the way, sir. Free up black people from me tear down them fence, yeah. Gideon, I'm a Gideon. The Gideon, I'm a Gideon. The Gideon, I'm a Gideon, well. The Gideon go busting out them head. I listen, I see, I the power of the Trinity. Give us the teaching of His Majesty. And we know war, no devil philosophy. Not until color of a man's skin is abnormal, significant well. To the color of his eye. Remember all the war done in 1935.
This is Sticky Stucky Sweet TV with Keith Gargan. Good, healthy food with the X Factor. So give it a like, share, subscribe, and touch up that notification bell. And that is it. Look at that.
On Sticky Stucky TV. If your finger is not sticky, subscribe. But if your finger sticky, do not subscribe on Sticky Stucky TV. Big up yourself, Keith.